During the past week, two questions have animated the political class and frustrated the big government crowd. Each question addresses sacred cows in America. Texas Governor Rick Perry caused a firestorm among the big government crowd when he called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. I hope he doesn't back down from this because he's right. It was a scam from its inception, and it's a scam still today. When Social Security was established in 1935, it was intended as minimal financial assistance to those too old to work. It was also intended to have voters dependent on FDR's Democrats. FDR copied the idea from a system established in Italy by Mussolini. The plan was to have folks make small contributions to a fund which would be held in trust for them by the government. At the time, the average life expectancy of an American was 61 years. But Social Security didn't kick in until age 65. Thus, the system was geared. It was intended to take money from the average American that he would never see. Exempted from these contributions were railroad workers, most of whom at the time were black, farmers who received subsidies from the feds already, and members of Congress who liked to collect taxes but not pay them. Over time, life expectancy increased. The trust fund was raided and spent, and the system was paying out more money than it was taking in. This morning on Fox, FDR's grandson called Social Security an insurance policy. He was wrong. In reality, it is forced savings in which the custodian of the saved funds, the Congress, stole the savings. The money was stolen by inflation and by outright theft. Today, the best one can hope for is to receive 75 cents back for every dollar contributed. Social Security is actually worse than a Ponzi scheme because you can get out of a Ponzi investment. You can't get out of Social Security. Who would stay with a bank that only returned 75% of one's savings? Because all the money that goes out comes directly from all the money coming in. This is a classic Ponzi scheme. Now, I never heard Governor Perry say that those who have contributed money should not get back what they've contributed. But I did hear him say that the Constitution does not permit the feds to take your money and then steal it. And he's right. Also this week, a young man from Napa, California, asked Wolf Blitzer to pose the following question to the Republican candidates for president during their debate on CNN. If I earn $1, how much of it am I entitled to keep? The question was passed to former Utah Governor Jon Huntsman, who punted. I'll answer the young man's question. All of it. At the beginning of each of these closing arguments every night on Freedom Watch, I ask, does the government work for us or do we work for the government? Every official government pronouncement, from the Declaration of Independence to the United States Constitution to the oaths that everyone who works for the government publicly takes, indicates that the government exists to work for us. They also state that the government receives all of its powers from the consent of the governed. If you believe all of this, as I do, then just as we don't have the power to take our neighbor's property and distribute it against his will, we lack the ability to give that power to the government. Stated differently, just as you lack the moral and legal authority to take my property, you cannot authorize the government to do so. Here's an example you've heard from me before. You're sitting at home at night. There's a knock at the door. You open the door, and a guy with a gun pointed at you says, "Give me your money. I want to give it away to the less fortunate." You think this guy's dangerous and he's crazy, so you call the police. Then you find out he is the police, there to collect your taxes. The framers of the Constitution understood this. For 150 years, the federal government was financed by user fees and the sale of government land and assessments to the states for services that the feds rendered to them. This worked perfectly well until the progressives took over the government in the early 20th century. The imposition of the federal income tax is more than just a spigot to fill the federal trough. It presumes that we don't really own our property. It accepts the Marxist notion that the state owns all property and permits us to keep whatever it needs us to have so we won't riot in the streets, and then it keeps whatever it can get away with. Look, there are only three ways to wealth in a free society. The inheritance model occurs when someone dies and leaves you wealth. The economic model occurs when you trade a skill, a talent, knowledge, sweat, energy, or creativity to a willing buyer. And the mafia model occurs when a guy with a gun says, "Give me your money or else." Which model does the government use?